In this video, I will tell you the process of creating a folly. First of all, we were explained about what a folly is. According to the PowerPoint given, a folly is a building constructed primarily for decoration. The point is that we are told to create a place that prioritizes decoration rather than the function, that is made based on the behavior of the human user. Based on precedents and examples of work from seniors, I began my process in creating a Folly design. This time, I will explain the process based on the collection that I did in Google Classroom. The first stage, I started to make sketches in the form of abstract forms that appeared when I thought about the definition of folly that I understood. In addition, I also asked my friends for opinions and analysis of human behavior. In this case, I asked friends outside of architecture who I considered as my clients, who had data and information that supported the creation of Folly. Not to forget, I also asked my supervisor for further explanation about Folly. After the analysis I did, I tried to make my first study model where I put forward something that attracts attention, provokes activity, not so clear in its use by minimizing the presence of furniture, which of course is scalable and compositional. However, there are still many shortcomings found, such as the function of each part is too easy to guess, the parts are still considered additional and not part of the folly, the function is still too clear, parts that are still unreasonable in size. In addition, I also collected evaluations given to my friends as further input. But some parts such as stairs that are considered playful, attractive colors, spots that have attracted attention and activities, I maintain as a basis for making the next study model. In the next study model, I prioritized curiosity and playfulness in making the Folly design, where the Folly was made for humans to explore activities. In the next model, I started to create a design image inspired by UGM's writing. I also saw many precedents from the internet, which I then put together into a unity that I considered appropriate. The mixture of precedents and UGM concepts resulted in my second study model. I made a sketch where I began to pay attention to several aspects so that there were no additional elements that were considered to exist because I did not know the purpose of making the folio itself. In this model, I maintained several aspects of my previous model, such as leveling, color selection, interesting spots, with the differences and additions that I got from precedents and inspirational ideas. But of course, I got a lot of evaluation results, such as there are spots that are still considered as additional, spots whose use is unclear, which also doesn't make sense for access to use. Folly is not yet scalable, use of materials that are not very varied. In the next study model, I try to find a solution from the previous evaluation. In the study model, there are only a few changes, such as the parts that I previously considered as a slide and hiding place to become another form with the same function. I also replaced some parts with different materials to make it look more attractive. I have also started to improve the scale of the Folly as an easy access for users. In addition, I have also thought about where the folly is located. I chose a green area on the edge of the sidewall that I think is suitable for the type of building I made, namely having a minimalist and modern impression. This model is considered to have met the requirements for the embodiment of the folly. Many parts can be maintained, but many also needs to be improved. However, the biggest drawback in the study model is where this model is too similar to an existing form, where I should have made a design that does not exist. Even though it is imitating, it should not be obvious that I am imitating. In the next study model, I started to take a big step to change the function of a part, namely by adding an aesthetic function to the lower level in the form of a pool. I thought that having a solid part on the left, like my previous model, would make the main attraction or main focus on this folly disappear. The parts that were considered only additional, I changed the function as placing vegetation as shade and life. I have considered this model as my final model, but the results of the evaluation say that this model still looks stiff, too solid, and not scalable. Compared to the work of my friends, we all have quite drastically different skills. Therefore, in the next study model, we were all told to match the size of humans as users of our Folly. In the next discussion, my friends and I were asked to create a new design that prioritizes contour exploration on the Folly. I started to exploring the shape of precedents on the internet and then combining them into a new unified shape. The next study model has a much different shape where I focus on the contour that functions as a social space. The circular downward contour and bounded with solid walls I intended as a place for humans to socialize in an introverted and calm manner. The upper cover, which is given an opening covered with mica, gives a semi-open impression, and the gap between the wall and the open cover is intended so that the room still has a feeling that gives freedom and freshness from the outside of space in an introverted space. On the other hand, I made a semicircle with several levels that can function as seating. The provision of vegetation is intended to strengthen the sense of openness and freedom of the outside space. The study model has many mistakes, starting from the sense of contour space, which is less attractive to visit because it is too closed. Besides, the design is too simple and less able to be explored. The walls are considered too solid and stuffy. Moreover, the study model is different from the sketches made due to time constraints. In my next study model, I was advised to create a new design but not necessarily different. From there, I thought of uniting all aspects of all the study models that I had ever made, starting from the aspects of function, appearance, and composition. In this model, I have made the solidity less and more scalar with human size. I also made the color selection different where the modern impression of the form is combined with the openness of nature. So, I use neutral colors as a form of balance between modernity and nature. I level the shapes of each part so that they blend together, where previously there was a stiff impression from the square shapes, so I changed it to be mostly curved following the focus on this Folly. I still applied the function of my study model at the beginning. I also included new ideas from my previous study models, where I still pay attention to the selection of parts that can be maintained and still give a balanced impression to this Folly. In the end, I chose to use my last study model to develop further. I developed several forms and materials with the same function. The development was intended to create an impression of unity. The site I used changed, where I focused on an open nature that gave the impression of freedom in activities. From this model, I made a poster containing important information from the final model that I made, starting from the concept of the Folly, which unites all the evaluations and concepts that have existed before. With the addition of a floor plan and elevation as an engineering information function, also information about the use of materials in the form of wood that unites all modernity of this Folly with the surrounding environment and also reduces the impression of solidity. Galvalume, which functions as an aesthetic function and makes it easier for engineers to form existing curved parts. Concrete, which functions to add a modern impression and makes it easier for engineers to form various geometric shapes. The transformations of the existing design also shows the use of simple composition principles that I made into a complex unity. Rules such as interlocking I also apply in forming the composition design of this Folly. The last is the function of the folly that attracts humans to explore activities that can be done in it, such as a viewing post with additional shade and borders as a value of comfort and safety, a meeting point created from a circular contour in the vast nature as a symbol of freedom to socialize with the surroundings and nature from the addition of vegetation in the middle. A place to relax, to just enjoy the aesthetics obtained and given by the folly. The place to relax also depends on its users. A shady, calming, open, fresh, introverted, and extroverted spaces atmosphere have been offered by this folly. This folly has easy access between spatial relationships and many levels as a utilization of space on limited land. So that is the design process of the folly that I made. Hopefully in the future I can make more interesting and better designs. Thank you.